Greetings, everyone. This is the introduction to the introduction with Anna Tivel. Just a quick note here that the audio on my side of the conversation starts off sounding a little bit like Bruce Springsteen from his Nebraska recording, a little more rustic, but it does not take away from the lovely, inspiring, truth-telling, soulful conversation that I had with Anna Tivel. And this conversation drips with authenticity. For that, I thank Anna Tivel. Here is the true introduction. Welcome to Contemplify, where we seek to kindle the examined life for contemplatives in the world. I'm your host, Paul Swanson. Today, I welcome Anna Tivel, who's an award-winning songwriter and musician from Portland, Oregon. In our conversation today, we traverse many topics: short stories, poetry, checking for shit on your shoes, and Anna's latest spellbinding album, Animal Poem. For me, this felt like old friends, talking about matters close to the heart, despite this being our first real conversation. Anna Tivel is thoughtful, funny, inquisitive, and one of the best working songwriters out there. Do yourself a favor, pick up a copy of Animal Poem over at Fluff and Gravy Records. As always, you can visit contemplify.com for the show notes on this episode and learn more about Anna Tivel and see if she's playing a show near you at annativel.com. That's ANNATIVEL.com. Now join me in raising a glass to my guest today, Anna Tivel. Yeah. We're off to the races. Anna, thank you so much for being here today in conversation. That's the way to begin. I always just love to ask, where are we finding you in the world today? What's the context and setting that you are in?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really feel like these conversations that you have here have kept me company so often, and they have very often drawn me back into a place that I am kind of trying to lean into more often. And life throws you out of it again and again. And I really find it to be a place that it's just like a reminder to be thoughtful. And I've been so taken by so many ways that people talk about living and searching for things. And today I am home in Portland, Oregon, and sitting here with my dog, sleeping here. And
oh, nice.
It's a abnormally sunny January week in Portland, which is usually the thick of the dark when you wake up and dark when you are up time. And it's just sitting by the window and watching the neighborhood go by. We live a block from the McDonald's, and there's a coffee shop and what was once a strip club but is now an all-ages rock club, an Ethiopian bakery, a record store, a bunch of colorful neighbors. So I often just like to kind of sit by the window and watch whatever goes down in the neighborhood that day.
Oh, I love that. You paint such a vibrant scene of your locale. What's your dog's name?
This dog is Jones. There's two dogs in this house. The other one I dropped off he's in a teen puppy phase of absolute rug eating, barking, humping destruction. So I dropped him off somewhere to get his self worn out today.
That's great. I remember when you played in Albuquerque, your dogs were with you, and you had mentioned that they had torn up some boxes in the van.
Yes, the
It's
distraction continues.
well, my dog Charlie was just down here, and he may come back and join us at some point. So it's always nice to have these furry companions steady us in conversations like this.
I agree. They remind you that nothing that you think matters.
That's right. I always love to ask this question. As we were talking about, the theme of this podcast leans on contemplatives in the world. And that word contemplative means many things to many folks. How does that word or moniker contemplative relate to you or your work, if you think it does at all?
I really love the word, and I feel like it's something that I notice in other people, and I'm trying to draw into my own world. Or it feels like it can go on forever
Mm,
in this way that I love. Like anything can be turned over in your hands, or maybe right now to me it means something like noticing, trying to take care of your attention, and maybe with people and with the natural world, and just living, trying to pull yourself nearer to those things and kind of hold them closer and closer, and with curiosity kind of wonder what they are. And that's something when you meet somebody at the grocery store or something, and you can tell that they are there in the grocery store, and then you meet other people and they're 1,000 miles from the grocery store, and you feel like that sometimes too. You're not taking in anything where you are. Maybe that's how I think about it right now, trying to be in the grocery store when you're in the grocery store.
I love that response. It reminds me of one of my teachers, James Finley, a contemplative teacher, where there's this one time he was doing an event and he needed something from a drugstore or something like that. So we went to one of those big box stores, where you just immediately feel your soul kind of separate, just the overwhelm of it. And I was in like a hurried state, like, let's get this and let's move on. And Jim took so much time with the cashier, was so present to them that the line just started to like build behind us. And internally I knew, like, this is what presence looks like. This is being in the box store when you're in the box store. This is being in the grocery store when you're in the grocery store. And there's the part of me that's not there that's like, let's get this show on the road. So as you were painting that picture, I immediately went back to that moment with Jim of being around people who are there. And I aspire to do that as much as possible. And I appreciate too, your description of that word is what I hear in your music. And the fact that I could receive that as an expression from your art, it's humbling for me because it invites me into that. I'm just so grateful for how you channel that, how you embody that in your art. I wish it wasn't a rare thing, but I feel like it is. And so thank you for that response. I would love to know, Anna, I think about lineages a lot, like what forms us, what traditions. Do you feel like there's, whether it's philosophical, spiritual, or artistic streams that you are swimming in or floating down that have formed you?
I was thinking about this today for some reason, that there's like being here and whatever mix of experience and nature and how you kind of take in what is happening here and what might happen when you're not here, and all the kind of like big wild questions that come up. And I think at a certain, or there's like the times you can remember being a kid when you felt just supremely alive in your own way. It could be like, I can remember my family volunteered. I grew up in a small town in northern Washington, and there was this little movie theater. It's like kind of an art house movie theater, and we would go there sometimes. And if you volunteered, if you served popcorn and stuff, you could go see the movies for free.
Oh, wow.
And we'd go and we'd do the popcorn. And I think it was the first time in my kid life, like my family would go sit wherever, and I'd just go like wander myself off into the very back of the theater and sit there in the dark and just feel. And the movies would be sort of, I can remember watching, have you ever seen the movie Life is Beautiful?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is like this kind of this guy telling a story to his kid about to create an experience that is much better than the one that's happening. But I remember being a kid and sitting in the dark theater in the back and just having this feeling of like, oh, it's big. Life is it's so much, and it's so big, and it's such a giant bucket of questions. And I don't know, maybe I think it's a series of those things, and the people that you come upon that resonate, or you can see something in them that you hope to know someday, or that you aspire to move that way in the world, or there's something that they're in their aliveness that just feels magnetic. I don't know if this is answering the question, but
it is. It is.
I feel very disjointed in life, or very much like it's sort of this series of sensory moments and people, and being moved and then forgetting to be moved and then being moved again. And you're slowly kind of forming this poem that you're in. Yeah.
I love that. It reminds me of this book I read recently called Liturgies of the Wild, where the author, Martin Shaw, talks about if you only live in soul, life is a statement. If you live in soul and spirit, life is a poem. And there's something about that I really like. We need both soul and spirit as to bring the poetic beauty of the bigness, the fullness of life. And I could just picture you in that theater. Like, it's just such a memory, a visceral feeling, childhood. And I think those not rare, but when those experiences still come and you can drop into them in an unguarded way, it's really special to be alive and feel that fullness.
Yeah. Do you find that they get more rare, or that sometimes I feel like that, or that the work gets bigger to be in the state of coming upon them?
I think so. I think about the complicated matters of daily life, of just the things I have to do, these intrusions that get in the way of that I have to do. It's just part of, I got to brush my teeth and feed the dog and all things that I can enjoy doing, but I'll treat them as things to get through rather than this is my life right now. And I feel like if I'm unguarded enough or vulnerable enough to the present of the moment, I can be overtaken by beauty and possibility. Is that true for you as well, would you say?
Yeah, it's a similar, like it's the maybe if you lived in that moment all the time, it would be like an acid trip or something. Like if you stayed there, something would explode inside your mind, and you need the amount of lostness and absurdity and the hilarity of like getting into the car and something smells like shit and you can't figure out what it is, and it's that you stepped in it, and that's just how the day is going. And but you need those things so that when you come upon those big moments of being just completely floored by everything, it really strikes you. Yeah, maybe the work is like being ready when they come or something, being knowing that that exists too, along with the shit on your shoe.
Along with the shit on your shoe. It's every day when I walk my kids to school, one of them, my youngest, will always do a shoe check to make sure they haven't stepped in any shit along the way. It's like their thing. And it's so funny because it's every single day that this happens. And it's also so sweet. It's like, can you do this for me? Can you stop your hurriedness and check my shoes for shit? That's for me, one of the gifts of those little creatures is the way that they're so full of wonder that they pull me into that when I'm thinking on things that supposedly matter, but really don't. They pull me into that wider space, whether it's to look at the moon or the sunset that I'm apparently missing. I think I'm grateful for them, and then also for other friends and comrades who can help open that space for me. And also when I'm also able to offer that for others, there's like a kinship in those type of relationships.
Yeah, I played a show around the East Coast the other day, and this wonderful guy was telling me he has two sons, and he was they're fairly young, and he said one of them is really just kind of wants the thing to be black and white, like he sort of wants there to be rules in the world, and he's maybe a little younger and is ready to kind of know what is right and what is wrong and just define those for me. And his other kid, he said, just really feels, he's really a feeler, and he said he just has been loving watching movies with them because the one will be like, okay, so he's bad, right? And the other kid will say, well, I mean, did you see the part in the beginning where his father was very cruel to him, and so now he and the younger kid will listen for a while and then just say again, and so he's bad.
That's great.
I love thinking of him getting to be a witness to the two of them kind of navigating what it is.
Yeah, that's a great example. I can hear those voices in my own head at times of like, I just want to know. This is right, wrong, good, bad. Let me put them in a category And then when that more expansive space within me yields, it'll say, what's the story here? What's the edges of this that are actually more complex? And how do I appreciate that? I love that. It's a chance for folks listening to get to know you a little bit. Bit of an odd question, but one I love to kind of throw out there. If someone were going to teach a class on the formation of Anna Tivel, what would be the 3 mandatory readings, works, pieces of art, or places that formed you that would definitely be on that syllabus?
Man, I think probably some short stories. I often have this feeling the short stories are something that I kind of stumbled upon later in life, but have just been so there's something about that form that really holds so much with so few words, and it kind of amazes me. It blows my mind. There's a story that I love so much by have you ever read this one by George Saunders called Sticks?
No.
That's like 2 paragraphs long, and I can't believe the amount of life and truth and weirdness and humor and wonder and like grief he fits into these 2 paragraphs, and kind of about this man and his family, and he's sort of this uptight, whatever the experience of his life has been has left him punching his self in so many ways, and he's monitoring the amount of ketchup that his kids use, and there's like these tiny little sentences that allow you to really feel the energy and the tension in their house. And his one concession to joy is that he dresses up. Well, I don't know if joy is the right word, but the one kind of outlet or expression that he has is there's these 2 metal poles in the yard of their house, and he dresses them up. And over the years, it gets more and more complex. It starts out maybe it's just for the holidays, so it's dressed up with Christmas lights for Christmas or whatever it is, and then over time, it gets more and more human and complex as he sort of ages and gets nearer to death. And he hangs apologies and bits of his wife's makeup and things, and questions that he has from this pole. And I just love it's just these 2 paragraphs that let you see this whole world. I feel like it's things like that that I've stumbled on over the years, that both in my work and in life, they're like showing it's a portal or something into this. It's somehow so short, but it expands your idea of what's possible and what is human so much. That there's a story by Wendell Berry called Fidelity.
Ugh,
Do you know this one?
That is one of my all-time favorite short stories.
God.
Wow.
It's so I won't feel like it, but I just ruined the last one by trying to describe it. But man, it makes me want to live with my eyes open so much wider to my community and to love and what that can be, and to kind of stillness and solace. I don't know how like the ability to show me that and to have like lived a life of like what you were saying of contemplation and of practice of your work, with the ability to distill that with such intensity and devotion. And then for me, a complete stranger, to be sitting in my car on tour reading that story and just thinking, oh, I've got to call my sister.
Yeah.
And love the hell out of her right now. And that, oh man, I don't know. I think those are the things and music in that way too. Music I can remember hearing John Prine's song Sam Stone or something like that, where everything that is connective between people or in the world is there somehow with so few words, and you leave that like I imagine you would leave the best that a church service could be.
Yeah.
Just feeling open to everybody and feeling for everybody here. And yeah, I think those are the kind of little lamps, seeds that I've found along the way, that I'm sort of looking for those always and stumbling on them unawares, and being so grateful that somebody spent their life putting those things into words or into sounds or into color that we can find. And yeah.
That's beautiful. I'm seeing so many connective threads through that answer into your own songwriting, which I'm excited to get there. But I'm going to definitely check out Styx by George Saunders, since that's new to me. Fidelity is one of those stories that I always recommend to people. And I always say, but read more of Barry's fiction so you can like feel the fullness of that impact of that story. Because Burley Bolter, who is the center of that story, is one of my favorite characters of all time. And I just remember weeping throughout that of the loss, but also the community of like, what does the communal collective love look like in practice? And Sam Stone, what a great, great song. Thank you for that. When I saw you play in Albuquerque, you played a new song, and then you sent it as a poem to me on the train. I don't know if I can't remember if it's got a title or not, but I'm always drawn by songs that are poems that are songs. Are there any poems or songs that have been kind of reverberating in you lately that won't leave you alone in that way? Whether it's one you've written or one that you've heard that is kind of sticking with you, sticking to the ribs during this season of life.
Yeah. I've been on a big, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her name, but Louise Glick.
Oh, yeah.
I think that, yeah, I've been really enjoying listening to her interviews lately, but she often will name poets in her interviews that she's enjoying, or colleagues of hers. And so I've been on this hunt lately. Every time I hear her name somebody, I go see if I can't find that book. And a couple that I've found that way lately have really, there's two lately that this guy, Jay Hopler, who wrote, I think he has passed away. But in the last bit of his life, he wrote this book of poems called Still Life. Have you ever read this?
No, it's new to me.
It's just... Oh, can I read you one?
Please, please.
There's one in here. It's just short. So he's in the hospital, and so it's he and his wife's anniversary. So this poem's called To My Wife on Our Anniversary. In Castiglione del Lago, the pines are iron-spined. When the wind blows, they stand still and the earth sways. If only God had forged me thus, forced into a stooped form and told to straighten up, that's as far as his blessings ever extended in my direction. You know what keeps me from falling apart? Luck and duct tape. Even so, those trees have nothing on me. Blessed as they are, all they get to hold today is a sick man's attention and maybe a few birds. And really, just as I imagine him leaving that note for his wife on their anniversary, and just
That's beautiful.
That one's been getting me lately. And also this guy, Richard Sykin. Have you heard his poems ever?
No.
There's just he's got the tastiest, I think he's a painter. So his way with language, he has so many just juicy color and brush strokes. It's almost like his poems are trying to paint, and then he's erasing, and then he's asking while he's writing what is painting or what is writing, and then he's answering himself, and then he's scratching that out, and then he's answering himself again. It's sort of this delightful, he feels like he's like word stumbling into really real truths.
That's a great introduction. I cannot wait to check him out. I always find that fascinating too, when just the cross pollination of arts and how they can build and support and reveal things that maybe in just one medium they don't get that full aspect. So I always just enjoy the interplay. I don't mean just the arts too. Other things obviously play a role in that, but I'm excited to check that out. I was thinking, I recently saw the new documentary about Jeff Buckley. Have you seen this documentary?
Yeah, I just watched it the other day.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to the first time I heard his voice as my first year in college. A new friend brought me into his room, put the record on, and said, "Just listen to this. I'm going to leave you alone." And it was one of those rare gifts of just like, okay, weirdo, like I don't really know you that well, and like you're forcing me into this situation. And just sitting with that album Grace and moving through the entirety, flipping the record over and just having it take me all the way there. This memory it's so like hauntingly alive in me, like it still lives in me. And I do feel like it set in motion a trust in the fragility of authenticity that I hope to continue to grow in just from what I feel like he modeled in that album. And so I'm wondering, do you recall a song or an album that sparked a similar response in you that helped you kind of find your own voice as a songwriter and artist?
I love the way you say that, the fragility of authenticity, that feels so real. It's such an intangible, you don't know why it feels so visceral. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. One that I come back to again and again is this Nina Simone album, Nina and Piano. Right? And it's just like her and the piano, and it just comes from, she doesn't seem to ever have any filter between what is happening in her and what the world might want from her. It just seems like she just has to, it just had to come out of her that way. And it's so joyful and mournful. Yeah, there's something. I often listen to a little bit of that before I play a show, or just if I'm feeling a bit out of my body, just to remember that there's no way you need to be for these people in this room. It's just that if you can be the most yourself, then you'll all have an experience here where you're sharing that with each other, and people might feel welcome to do that with each other in the room and with you in the room. And she's one that definitely reminds me that often. There's just this freedom in the way she lets her soul out of her mouth, out of her fingers.
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And it's fun to hear how that album continues to be this touchstone for you.
Do you listen to is the Jeff Buckley something that you come back to, or is it just that experience lives in you, or does it feel the same when you listen to it now?
Great question. I hadn't listened to him in years. And when I've come back to him recently after seeing that documentary, I've been listening a lot to, there's a live album before Grace came out, where it's before everything, before the impact of what that album did for him and his work and his career. And it's almost like another layer of that vulnerability. And he's, I want to say like half the songs are like Bob Dylan covers, and his own are kind of like intermixed in there. And he sings this song in another language that it's just piercing. I can't remember the name of the artist now. And so I've come back to it, but I have a harder time going back to Grace as an album, I think, because it was such a moment in time that when I have gone back to it, I almost go back to that 19-year-old version of myself in a heap of puddles of that feeling. But I will go back to it almost as like a marker, like going back to read an old journal that has that same feel for me. But essentially, I hadn't thought about like, why don't I listen to it more regularly? There's probably something I'm hiding from in that.
Isn't that interesting that, or you can have something can just open a window wide in you in a moment like that, and then it's almost like you revisit that moment, and the thing will always kind of live in that way, and you almost go back to it to remind yourself that moments like that are possible.
Yes.
Just to feel like, oh, remember when your emotion just came up like a wave and you were alone in this room and this weird guy left you in, and you needed to know that you could feel that much.
That's it, exactly. And I'm so grateful for that experience. And also when other pieces of art open that portal for me now, I don't know if I'm lucky or what it is, because I know a lot of my friends feel like music does not move them the way it did in that era of life. And I still feel like I have had those experiences. And your album Animal Poem is one of them, where like it opened another portal for me. And then all of a sudden, when I play that album over and over and over again, it's a conversation that I'm listening to that is that visceral experience that moves beyond that moment. But it's carrying me away, but it's also carrying me deeper into the moment as well. And to me, that is the gift of art, the gift of being able to be porous enough to receive. I can't imagine that it's weird for me to be like, I know, here I am talking to you about what that means to me, your album. I don't, maybe, yeah, this is maybe my question for you is, what is it like to receive that response in your artistic form that you've offered the world, to hear that it's stopping people in their tracks and opening up portals and reverberating in my own soul and being carried with it? What is that like? I mean, I feel like I lift up music in a place of like, I love albums that feel like albums that aren't just, that are holding so much mystery and beauty in them. And I've never created something like that. And I'm so grateful for artists who are doing that. Now I feel like I'm just fanning out, but what is that like for you to hear that you've been this conduit for your listeners?
That just means more to me than I can ever put in words. And it means so much to me because I know that feeling so intimately with the art that I love, the artists, and that I need them to show me. And it honestly, if we're going to fan out for a minute, I have the same experience with the conversations that you foster, because I need, in this really intense way, to be drawn out of my smallest self to rediscover all the ways that people are existing in the world, and the ways that they are looking for things, and the ways that they are like trying to widen the language of love. And I forget just 1,000 times a day to wonder about it. And the longer I forget, the smaller I feel, and the more isolated, and the more I think I've been historically a very hidden person, and very watchful, and I've had a very hard time reaching toward people. And this, I feel like I'm learning it always through other artists and other people that are looking for that thing also, or making things that remind me. And I think it's my deepest, maybe just the deepest human desire to feel like you're with the world, and you're communicating and being seen and understood, and that you're seeing and understanding what other people here are expressing, that there's a conversation going, and without that conversation, you're so afloat.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I feel very much like it's this, like the thing I'm proudest of and most devoted to, and also the most unhealthily scrabbling my way toward obsessively, is the any sort of moment where something is expressed between people that is understood in its kind of subtlety and sharedness. I feel like a 10-year-old in that, of sort of like, oh, friendship. You could have friendships and they could be so real, and you have to show up there and you have to give yourself over and over again, even when yourself is this like ugly little stepped on snail. You give that thing, and then the person says what they see, and you do that for each other. And it's almost amazing to me how long I sort of like didn't allow that energy to be exchanged. So it means a lot to me.
Thank you for that response. It's in that sharing of it that I feel like so much life begets life, and in recognizing that, it just fills the tank of aliveness. I feel like, to keep going. One of the things that comes to mind in the outflow of what was just shared, and already mentioned, seeing you play live this past fall, and you opened up with Animal Poem, title track of your latest album. And I just sat there, my cheeks tear stained, and thinking about the specific narrative that starts it. And then it feels like you're thumbing through pages of wisdom that you're offering through that, both cosmic and earthy, leaving me as a listener to lean in more fully with like a participation of love to what's unfolding in the context of my life, but also in the context of the story. So, my dumb question would be, how the hell did you do that? But my real question is, behind those words of, how did you become the type of person who was able to translate such mysterious beauty in word and melody? This kind of goes back to the conduit piece. Or do you feel like, I love Greg Brown says that he's just God's secretary. He just writes what the mystery reveals.
Yeah.
What is that like for you? I feel like it's such a blurry question that I'm trying to formulate. I can't quite find the right articulation. Does it make sense what I'm aiming for in that?
Yeah, I know what you mean, I think, and I feel the same about like those short stories that how did you take me there? How did you so fully realize that thing that I know to be true? And you put it into words, and I didn't have any words for it. And there's this, I often think about writing, or I relate to my work, I think, as a form of an attempt to believe. Like what shows up there is the best of a big chaos of messy thoughts. It's the best I can imagine of what it means to be here. And I'm trying to ask it enough times that I might believe it. I sometimes feel, does that make sense? I think if I can describe it, or if I can get at the images and the stories that make it feel true, maybe I might believe it, or I might learn it, or I might find a new bit of it that I haven't come upon yet. It feels that way. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've had a bit of this country and the way I've been a little bit just stopped in my tracks. I think with my writing, and I'm realizing that it's so much and so just unhuman that I don't know. I feel like my response, my writing urge always comes from a question of like, I don't understand. I want to understand how this can be so beautiful or how this can be so difficult or painful. And it's almost like in this moment, I can't even formulate a question, which is so, it's like the urge to try to get at it with writing. I feel very like I can't begin. There's something there's something so immense about the things happening, and I know it exists in there. It maybe just it's moving so quickly or something, but I don't know. You feel that when you're in conversation or you're reading or you're writing or you're thinking or meditating, that you are like, where do you feel that the best of your reaching exists? Is that
Great question. I'm thinking about that particular thinking that's like below thinking. Like, I think in kind of popular terms, we call it like a flow state. I think I like to include the mystery of our being in that. Like, there's some sort of thinking that is arising, erupting, that allows that other thinking to take place. And one of my driving questions in life, I think like a lot of people, like, what does it mean to be human? And there's the concrete linear way that I explore that, but there's something that's below that is completely unspeakable. But I can feel it, I can sense it, and that's where I feel like the gold that I cannot claim comes from in those moments. And there's like a devotional sense to it. How do I stay in fidelity to that relationship? Do you have a devotion? Does it feel like you have a devotional sense in your writing process?
Yeah. If only just that it's the place in kind of like a tunnel visioned, just intoxicated way. It's the place that I'm masking, and maybe just it's the place where expressing whatever it is that's happening or that I see feels satisfying or feels like it gets communicated, or the work of the communication feels very satisfying to me. The like tactile tastiness of words and trying to get the actual shape of them to hold it's like this way that when you read poems that you really love, they don't tell you, it's so unspoken still. it's so unfactual and unhinged. It's like connecting strange words that you'd never put together, and somehow the meaning that is there is, it just is how you feel. And there's something about that. But I see it, I love that about art or about expression. It's not, it also feels so ordinary and unspecial. Like it feels very much like I go to the Plaid Pantry down this. I don't know if you guys have Plaid Pantry.
No,
It's like a convenience store where you get your energy drinks and your gum. It's this like people in every situation are employing their own version. Or you, like, I went to get my oil changed the other day, and I just had this feeling from the guy, like you just come upon people and they feel so solid.
Mm-hmm.
Like their idea of what is good feels so formed, but also so unspoken. Like I don't know him, and I would have loved to know him, but I felt so much like he didn't need to prove what he means by that. It just lives in him.
Yeah.
And I just had this feeling like, oh, if you have kids, man, those are lucky kids. They are seeing someone who doesn't need to defend themselves against the world. And I like that words or songs are my way of kind of asking, but everybody is doing it. And the moments when I can climb out of myself enough to notice, it's so alive with human nature of wondering and of expressing, and all the ways that we kind of do that. That's both with art and just with the living normal life, the way we pet a cat, or the way there's ways that we're asking, is this a human? And I don't know. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. One of the things that popped in my mind as you were talking, I'm a big fan of Gary Snyder, his poetry, but also just his essays and the work and life he's lived. And one thing I appreciate is he talks about practice, contemplative practice is just the intensification of life. And I think about that, thinking about mechanic, the guy who changed your oil, of like his practice is like, that's a part of his practice that helps kind of radiate that solidity of how he shows up in the world. And in those moments when I'm able to recognize that, I'm like, well, you're my teacher right now. Like, how are you in this way? Like, you're fascinating. You're bringing your full self to this from what excites and animates you. And I have so much to learn from every corner and texture of life in those moments. And it was fun to hear you reflect on that and from your own way. Because it brings me to another question I want to ask you about. There's a specificity, I always struggle with that word, and placemaking in some of your songs that come to mind for me, that uplift a place of like an insistence for examination, but not a domineering examination. So like what I'm thinking about Badlands, Howe Avenue 66, where you're not seeking authority over something through examination, but it hits me as like a dialogue of true longing to be in a relationship. And I see this in your song as well, in the way to White Goose. Does that ring true to you? Do you see attention to detail as a dialogue of longing to connect?
Yeah, and you just said it in a way that I feel it, but have never thought it in words. But You rang that bell right in me. Yeah, it's almost like I did a train tour. I did a tour all by train this past year, and I did a tour by train and also a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And those two experiences really, I'll be chewing on them forever. And they also really were so illuminating in the ways that I'm craving to touch the places that I am. And I'm not quite sure how, which is maybe just a human thing or a weird introvert thing. But I was so amazed the 10-day. You don't look at anybody or talk or write or read, or that you just sit in your mind, which I'm a total novice meditator, and it was like I drank right out of the fire hose for some reason. But I was so amazed at how much I was trying to hide from myself, even of just sitting in there, how many other things I would get up to with my mind in an attempt to feel alive or better or less uncomfortable, and also to feel okay where I am. And also on the train tour, just kind of watching the country go by out the window and having this feeling of like being so moved by how big and messy and full of struggle and pain and dollar trees and cathedrals this place is, and how much more comfortable I am watching it and being moved by it than being in it.
Yeah.
I think is part of the writing of places. I want to get in them, and I am trying to get in them with everything that I notice about them. And then in my actual life, I'm trying to get in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how always, or I'm wanting to. It's like I'm trying to write myself into real life. And maybe eventually I will.
That's a great line. Great. There's something that feels so similar about you're talking about a 10-day silent retreat and then traveling by train. Just as far as like the pace of the day, of course, at a train, you don't know who you might bump into, what small conversation you might have. But same, I guess, in a 10-day silent retreat, you don't know what thoughts, what parts of yourself are going to show up. Have there been lasting impacts, or kind of how has the ripple effect of those continued to show up since then?
A lot. That there's, I think maybe it's just that well-worn thing that the uncomfortable, just placing yourself in the world causes you to grow into it and battle with yourself in that space. And I really love things that take away your control. I'll sit at a table and change the word the to then for 4 hours, and that's all good and well, but there's like something else out there that is so far out of my understanding and my control. And to kind of tour is also really beautiful in this way. The day is a totally unknown expanse, and you bump into and have conversations with so many people and things and places that are unexpected. And it's sort of just makes you confront yourself and confront the world and hold it more. Yeah, there's like a slowness. I've been craving so much lately that the train and the meditation and that certain authors, and there's, it's almost not about getting anything said. It's just about sort of expressing something almost like deeply and embarrassingly true. Things that are like, it's not beautiful, it just is so real between people or in a place. And that I'm craving those things, this sort of like earnestness that is so uncool and so slow and hard won. And it's like the anti pop hit of aliveness.
Yes, yes. That rings so true for me, and that clearly shows why I'm so drawn to your music. I'm thinking about how do I want to word this? As we were talking about the ripple effects, the specificity, the placemaking, I'm also thinking about the vividness in which you articulate the natural world into, like, I'm going to read this line real quick. This line just shattered me because I can see it, I can feel it. It's from Badlands. 1,000 birds in startled ways reversing through the sky, then emptiness right after that explosion. Like, that's both something that happens in nature, something that I experience in myself, and yet they're not two, but they're not one either. Like, it holds that middle space. How does the natural landscape hold for you both the metaphorical and the concrete background for you in songwriting?
Just maybe because I grew up in a really kind of in the woods and with moles and snakes and forest and ferns and just the kind of daily goings ons of ants. And yeah, maybe also because I was a kid that spent a lot of time there, found a lot of pleasure in that quiet wildness, that I just feel like everything that's happening in the human world, which we feel is so separate from the natural world, but isn't at all, because we're
Yeah.
just these like biological tangles also. But we are like reflecting always the kind of wonder and the brutality and the confusion and asymmetry that I often find it really, it just resonates to like be, or to where I live, there's just insane amount of crows right now, and everywhere it's the city, but you walk through the park and there'd be like 200 crows in one tree and they're just talking. And they're, what are they talking about? I don't know. And it seems foreboding, but also really powerful. And there's something about, and they're doing their nature thing in the midst of like the sirens and the exhaust. And it just feels like everything that I'm experiencing in my human life is being taught to me there tenfold, or the way that we take from each other, or the way that we care for each other, these ways that nature sort of like kills and eats and nurtures itself over and over and over again. And we have that same thing in our nature, and we deny it, or we fight it, or I don't know. I think I just find it very true and full of awe to kind of ask my questions to that world, because it's so wordless there. It's not trying to tell you what it's doing. It just is. And yeah, I don't know if that was a messy pile of an answer.
Not at all. Not for me. I had the image of walking around my neighborhood and there's all this construction going on right now. And then there's a coyote just wandering. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is all passing. Yeah. This is what is happening. And the coyote is just living its life that it knows amidst the construction of humans trying to pave over some land. They're still kicking it, doing their coyote thing. And it pulled me out, it pulled back the kind of the time continuum to just almost look at it with like eternal eyes of, oh yeah, there's a much larger life exchange happening right now than this annoying construction that's blocking this street. And it just kind of makes me chuckle about, the sense of control that I chuckle so I don't weep. The sense of control we try to hold over nature. And the reminder of limits and how to be in the right relationship to this intricate web that has given us so much that we're a part of and not separate from. So yeah, your response was definitely right in the tune of my own heartstrings.
Did you ever read Pilgrim at Tinker Creek?
I have.
That is a book I think opened a portal to me of the things that you could notice in this tiny stretch of yard that are just mantises eating each other's heads, and the way leaves decompose to feed other things, and just kind of like turned on visceral watching that she did in that book. And it didn't feel like separate from humanness. It felt so informative of like watching to understand why the inside of yourself feels so intense. So many things.
I have a neighbor who wants to know every square inch of her yard. So there's food growing everywhere, different seasonal gardens, compost that's available for neighbors to come and contribute their compost to. And it's like that kind of attention, whether you live at Tinker Creek or in a city and you have this small plot that you're stewarding for a very short amount of time, but getting to know it that intimately, there's wisdom in that localized place that we get to be in relationship with. And it's so easy to forget when we're setting up temporary shops without the forethought of what's the history of this place, what's growing beneath my feet, who are the critters who are going to come visit. And I find in these lines that like in your songs will pull me back to that place, even if it's going to bring me back into a particular narrative arc or melody. It's these little wrapped gifts of eternity in the songs. And it's fun to hear you reflect on that process for you and your relationship, the web of life.
I think it's what you just said about the coyote. It's like that you get reminded and it pulls you back out into this wider, free you're just a tiny brief part of this thing, and it feels so good to draw back there, and it's so hard to stay there. And
Yeah.
feel that about writing. It's just trying to remind yourself and remember and mark those coyotes when they come up and hold on to them.
Hold on to the coyotes.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the song, The Humming. To me, it's one of my all-time favorite closing songs on any album. Because I feel like in the album, we walk through the mystery of living, suffering, the personal and the collective, the foibles of unhealthy culture, the mystery of being. And then you drop us off with The Humming, which feels like the mystery of love. How does memory stoke the mystery of love for you?
That's such a beautiful question. I'm so glad you feel that song. That one sometimes feels like so tender and so quiet that I sometimes feel funny playing it on a stage in certain rooms. It feels like not not what the world wants, but I just feel like such a eternal kid student of this sort of gathering of true moments that make you realize how far love can go, and it's never ending. And I feel it in people who have learned it more deeply or longer. I can feel them using their hearts in this way that I'm just hungry for. And I can feel the way time and work and language almost, or the way that, like, the language of trying to really know somebody or see somebody or be in relation with somebody, the way that will like unpeel you before each other forever, as long as you're willing to do that work. And I'm just so hungry to know where that goes. I want to show up for it. And it's so terrifying. And it feels new. It always feels like a new discovery every time you turn another page in that place. Or every time you want to run away from something uncomfortable in relationship, and then it deepens, or you come out the other end of a patch where you feel like strangers, and you find another part of each other. And I don't know, it gives me this feeling like if I could be in that work forever, it would be okay to leave at any time. That would be such a gift to have gotten to do that. I wouldn't feel like I hadn't gotten to live, or that I would I don't know, I think it's just the place I feel the most gratitude. I can't believe that exists, that you might get to find people that way or show yourself in that way. I don't know how you hold that in your relationships of that kind of lifelongness of it, or that you'll never know each other, but like that wanting will just ripple outward and outward and outward.
That's marvelous. It's really beautiful. It's reminded me of something else of who I spoke of earlier, Jim Finley, where he talks about when when you don't know someone very well, it's easy to say a lot about them. But when you really love someone, you don't know how to speak to it because there is no bottom to that. Like you're constantly moving, shifting, adapting, and like it's hard to put words on that mystery. And I so appreciated the way you were talking about kind of the different seasonalities and like the need for constant discovery and the aliveness in that. And what a gift it is, where whatever may become, the whole process is a gift to the self and to the other in that evolution. And I think that's why I was so struck by that song of it's almost like the holiness of time in a relationship and looking back and the gratitude for the ordinariness and how that drops into things that are bigger than it. It's the coyote again, you know? It's such a marvelous song. And truly the whole album, start to finish, it takes you somewhere. And I hope that everyone listening checks out Animal Poem, buys it, gifts it for friends who are of this kind of kindredness of heart. Because I think it's one of those albums that when it came out late last summer, I believe, like I just kept coming back to it and returning, revisiting, and just allowing it to be in conversation with me, which is a marvelous gift to all of us who so love and appreciate your music, because to me, that's part of the reception of art in that way. Keeps me going for the long haul. And your track record with that, with your previous albums and with this, it's just so fun to see the areas you're exploring. I'll stop buttering your bread, but I just so I so appreciate the way that you risk this over and over and over again through song, and the intimacy at which you show up in live shows. For anyone listening who has not seen you live, I hope they check out your tour page and show up, because it is there. You had mentioned earlier about like what, use the analogy of like a church service that's open to everyone. In no way am I calling this churchy, but like this connected feeling that happens, I think, at your shows that I can speak of from firsthand experience. Just encourage everyone to go out to see you play live after digesting and enjoying your albums. What's next for you? And I know you're still touring. Do you have other projects in mind that might be coming down the way that folks keep an eye out for?
Yeah. And I want to also that means so much to me, and I just feel that the conversation that we've had here and the conversations that you have here and that happen at shows, and that when people are willing to let the songs be part of their lives, is I feel so grateful that communication exists, and lucky to have stumbled into, after a whole lot of jobs where that conversation wasn't so reachable. It means a lot and is humbling, and it feels like a companion to living that I'm so grateful to have, and to draws me to people like you, or people that I meet at shows that are wanting to speak to each other in that way. And I'm learning there all the time that I'm doing this as a quiet moment. I've sort of intentionally, after a lot of years of kind of month-long tours into month-long tours, touring still, but kind of trying to be home as much, which has never happened besides the pandemic. Just feeling really nice, and I'm having a lot of writing time right now, and really having a deep craving to write so slow and long.
Mm.
I'm having this feeling of hopefully working my way toward something very free and very unpolished, that's very long form. I'm feeling a hunger to make time stretch, and this maybe because of the way the culture is compressing always into tiny little fragments. I'm wanting the conversation to stretch out, just in my own work, and a little unsure of what that means still, besides that I find myself writing really long, bad, versy songs right now. And I'm interested, trying to just let the expression happen and see what is trying to surface there.
Yeah. I love hearing just the continued risk, like willing to risk terrain that is potentially less comfortable or just new in that expression. So it's really fun just to hear how you process, how you digest, how you explore what calls to you and what's calling through you. It's a great reminder, I think, for everyone listening to keep stepping out in that way. And whatever your art form is, if it's a artistic expression or just the art of life, I think it's such an important thing. And so I'm grateful to hear the ways that you continue to explore those edges. There's part of me that just does not want this conversation to end, but I also feel like I'm sensitive to the things that we just need to attend to in our world. Like my kids, I have to go pick up in 10 minutes,
Oh,
which is part of the realness of life.
you got to go check their shoes.
That's right. You never know what kind of shit they stepped in today. But I always close the question just to keep it embodied and in the enjoyment and the verve of life. Anna, if you're going to pair our conversation with a drink, what would be your drink of choice and why?
I would, maybe in lieu of being able to be a booze or caffeine drinker, as I wish I could be, I would pair it with maybe some mint tea, the kind that your friend gives you who has a green thumb, and you go over there and they put it, dirt and all, into the boiling water, and it's sort of this gritty, sweet, earthbound thing that you drink together that they picked with their hands. And
That's perfect. There's nothing better than that kind of earthy tea, bespeckled with the dirt that it grew in. Thank you so much for this time together. Yeah, it's an honor. And there I go. I'm just buttering bread again. I'm just going to stop and say, this has been such a delight to be in conversation with you, as you've been playing in my ears for so long, and grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Paul. And I could talk to you for 17 years. So let's continue the conversation. I so appreciate what you do and what it teaches me and all of us who are listening. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good people, thank you for listening to this episode of Contemplify. May it aid you in plumbing the earthy depths of this shared cosmos. Pop over to contemplify.com to find the show notes for this episode, or sign up for the monthly Contemplify non-required reading list, or to sign up for the weekly contemplative practice, Lo-Fi and Hushed. If you are enjoying Contemplify, you can rate and review it on your podcast player. It helps fill the cup of contemplative cheer. The theme song of Contemplify is called Langside by Charles Enns and Darian Hovius. Fellas, thanks as always. And I'm looking forward to bringing you more musings here and conversations with contemplatives in the world in the near future. Until then, be well.